We are here at the Lizzie Borden Bed and Breakfast in Fall River, Massachusetts to investigate one of New England's darkest haunts. It is here where a gruesome double murder occurred that is still unsolved to this day. Both Andrew and Abby Borden were brutally murdered with a hatchet, and their daughter Lizzie was the prime suspect. Even though all the evidence pointed to Lizzie, she was acquitted and set free. We're here because of the countless paranormal occurrences, including people hearing voices, seeing shadow figures, and even being physically attacked. We want to determine if the Borden spirits still reside here or possibly something much darker. So we are here at the Lizzie Borden Murder Mystery House with Jack. Gonna give us a nice tour of the place?
Absolutely. So this is the room Lizzie was served her arrest warrant in by the city marshal, who would have been the equivalent of the chief of police. But her trial only lasted 2 weeks. After an hour, the jury came back with a verdict of innocent, and rumor has it that they found her innocent inside of 10 minutes, and they stayed out for an hour out of respect to Mr. Borden.
Now is it true that her entire testimony was thrown out of the case?
A lot of it was. Before any of this happened, in the 1840s, this land was a pear orchard. It was owned by a house adjacent to us. Now, there was a well here on the property. The woman was having some, clearly must have been postpartum issues. She brought her 3 children, 2 of which were toddlers and the other was an infant. She brought them out to the well here, picked each one up, dropped them into the well. When she was satisfied they were dead, she went home, slit her throat with a husband's straight-edge razor, and that was the end of that.
Jack is referring to Eliza Borden, who was married to Andrew's uncle. You can see here the 2 children's graves, Holder and Eliza Ann.
Healthcare then was sketchy, to say the least. There was no Obamacare yet. You know, you got sick and you didn't have money, you're in trouble. So, as the Bordens did have money, though, they did have access to a doctor. His name was Seabury Bowen. That's a picture of him up here on the wall. He lived right across the street, conveniently enough. August 3rd, Mrs. Borden went across the street to see him. When she's going over there, Mr. Borden shakes his fist out the front door, saying, "I'm not paying for this, you don't need to see a doctor, this is coming out of your allowance." Now, when she got there to see him, her complaint was odd. She told him that she was suffering nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, typical summer sickness symptoms, but she didn't think it was that. She thought someone was slowly poisoning both her and her husband. She thought someone wanted them both dead. Later that day, he comes by, knocks on the door. Mr. Borden just tells him, go away, we don't need you here. He just doesn't want to foot the bill. So, of course, 24 hours later, both Mr. and Mrs. Borden were dead, and you can only imagine what Dr. Bowen thought to himself. Oh boy, didn't you just tell me someone wanted them dead? If you had a few bucks and you had your own personal doctor and you met a grisly end, your doctor would do your autopsy, which would generally be done in your home. Mrs. Borden was done in this room, and Mr. Borden would be done in that room. So here's a couple photos. This would be the back of Mrs. Borden's head. Now, he shaved her head. He counted 18 to 22 blows with what he thought would be a small hatchet. She was the first, maybe the second blow. She was dead. Everything else after that was just for good measure. Now, Mr. Borden, you can see his face. Well, what used to be his face, it's gone. It's just hamburger. But if you look underneath his arm on the left, you can see the embalming table. And
underneath.
Right, in the upper left of the picture, you can see the sofa he was murdered on. You can actually see the arm of it. Well, he actually assisted the medical examiner in removing their internal organs. The reason for this was, there were a couple reasons. He wanted to remove their stomachs, which would have looked strikingly like that. By looking at the contents of their stomach, he could determine who died first by whose food was more digested. So by looking at Mrs. Borden's stomach, he figured her food was, by looking at it, he figured she must have died about 9 a.m. and he put Mr. Borden's death at about 11 a.m. as his breakfast was more digested. About 2 hours after Mrs. Borden was killed in the house, of course, Mr. Borden returns home. No idea his wife is dead upstairs. Tells Lizzie he's not feeling well, maybe he has a touch of summer sickness. He sits here and says, you know, I'm going to take a nap. So Lizzie agrees, yeah, it's a good idea, Father, take a nap. Now, she would later tell the Fall River police she took her father's boots off. He fell asleep. She goes back out here to resume ironing handkerchiefs, closing the door behind her. And when the killer that had 2 hours earlier murdered her stepmother upstairs must have snuck down here unbeknownst to her with that hatchet in hand, more than likely sleeping, because again, he had no defensive wounds. That first blow to the face probably killed him. Then the other 10 to 12 wounds were just good measure. His eye was knocked clear out of his head.
Jack points out a very interesting discrepancy in Lizzie's alibi. Although she told police she removed her father's boots, you can clearly still see the boots on his feet in this photo.
Lizzie, whoever her killer was would have come through this door. It's easy to think that she recognized her killer, as she had no defensive wounds. There was no sign of a struggle at all. That first blow to the side of her head would have incapacitated her, if not killed her right away. Would have fell to the floor, either dead or unconscious. Her killer more than likely straddled the body, probably grabbed a handful of hair, and just 18 to 22 times she was really dead. Over here in the bookshelf there's a real creepy doll, but behind the doll there is a book Lizzie read. She would initial all her books after she read them, and those are her initials in that one. The books above it belonged to her as well, with some interesting titles there. Were my two favorites were Ghost Meets Ghost and with Edge Tools. The fact Lizzie Borden read a book called Edge Tools is just amazing. That's it. Yeah, she would always initial her books. The chair this young man is sitting in, Leanne, the owner of the house, she used to stay in this room when the barn was being rebuilt outside. And shortly before she moved out to the barn, she woke up and, in her words, found that chair right about here, right next to the bed, so she says, as if someone was watching her sleep. Which I mentioned to you last night. One of the guests was complaining of issues, not complaining, but told me he had issues sleeping here. And the night before, in this room, someone said they had some issues too. They felt like they were being touched.
Looks like we found the bed you're sleeping in.
During later years, the house, rumor has it, was actually a speakeasy. During Prohibition, Fall River was just flooded with booze that would come into the country from Nova Scotia. There's a rumor it served as a brothel as well. I mean, it's got some interesting history. This whole house, supposedly. But sometime shortly after World War II, the McGinn family bought this house, and it sort of calmed down and just became a regular house. But they became convinced enough that the children that drowned in the well many years ago that the house is built on top of still live in this room. So a lot of overnight guests, they put small toys and stuffed animals in that toy box there. It was almost like an offering to the children that were killed in the well. A lot of people, myself included, have heard footsteps up here. I have a 10-year-old daughter. It's a little thing. I know the sound of running children. I know it well, and I've heard it a lot. On the third floor of this house, sometimes coming down the stairs. And through here, of course, is the bulkhead where
the back entrance is?
Yeah, where the Zach and his friends fled in terror in
really?
a princess-like fashion. Tiaras on and
Tiaras.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be us.
No, you guys will make it.
All right, so we got the HOGS first official investigation. We're just here at the Oak Grove Cemetery. We are right next to the Andrew Borden, Lizzie Borden monument right here. So we got Andrew Jackson Borden, Lizzie's father, Sarah, his first wife, Abby, his second wife, or Lizzie's stepmother. Now coming over to this side of the monument, explaining the children of them. First died when she was still a child. Alice Elizabeth Andrews is actually Lizzie Borden. She was buried under this name, died in 1927. as well as her sister Emma, died 1927, a few weeks after Lizzie. Thought it'd be fitting to just simply, light a little candle. Maybe they'll appreciate it, give us some great evidence tonight. We never know. So any spirits that are here, feel free to follow us over to the Lizzie Borden House tonight.
More than welcome.
More than welcome. And we're leaving this here for you. So we hope to hear from you tonight.
All right, we got the HOGS crew all here in our official Lizzie Borden top hats. We got Nicholas, me, myself, Brendan, lead investigator, Harrison, and yourself, Brian, over there, buddy. We're just sitting here kind of chilling. It's probably about 10 o'clock right now. We got the house, we're locked in, and this is our first official investigation. We actually have permission to be here. We did not break in, but there are some evil things that I believe do go on here, and
We're out here to find them.
we're gonna find them.
Absolutely.
Some evil spirits lurking around here.
We're just sitting here at the dining room again at the Lizzie Borden House, and we are about to go lights out. We all got our night vision cameras ready to go. We got a lot of equipment we're gonna try out tonight. A few new pieces of technology. I'm really excited to test out. So I think we lose the top hats.
Yeah, top hats are done now.
I think we'd be switching
Let's
over.
do it, boys. Kill the lights.
3, 2, 1, done.
Boom. Kick on
That's
night
sick.
vision.
It goes right to night shot.
We begin our investigation by walking through the house with our night vision cameras and start recording on a digital recorder to try and capture any EVPs or electronic voice phenomenon. Mr. Borden, do you want to come talk to us? Just come speak into this little light I'm holding in my hand. We can hear you.
I'm gonna hold on to this for the night.
Yeah, we have full access to the house. I know you don't like that. You liked your little section locked off, didn't you? So things wouldn't go missing?
Did Lizzie have sticky fingers?
Right now, what we got going on, what we're using is a millimeter. This basically reads magnetic field fluctuations in milligauss. We have the baseline temperature of 22.3 degrees Celsius, and it also has a REM detector, which basically it's just a silver antenna, emits a field of energy around it. If anything interrupts the field, it alarms. So my finger, you have to get very close, like my hand, like right to it. So it's not easy to make go off. So if it does go off, it's usually a good indicator that there's something paranormal going on. So we're gonna start kind of by just sweeping the house, basically using this as like you would a metal detector, just seeing where we can find some hot spots. So we're heading upstairs.